Howdy there, Bulldog Nation. Welcome back in to Take Two with Hawk. I'm Curtis Quillen, and he's the Hawk, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Brent Hawkins. Dr. Hawkins, how are you today?
Well, we're making steps. I'm pretty proud to look at all the accomplishments that's going on, and we're extremely excited for all the Bulldogs to get back.
We are recording this episode Thursday, August 7th, so a week before we bring kids back into classrooms here in CCISD. You're listening to this is publishing on Friday, August 8th. And let's start like we always do with good things. Convocation was last week, and that's one of the most electric crowds that I've been in, and I spent 10 years covering the Big 12.
Electric is a very good word for it. I was... this is 19 years ago, I became superintendent, and, over that time, to see the atmosphere of that, look, I'm starting my 33rd year in education, and to be a part of that was truly an honor because, Mr. Flippin kept talking about how special that was, and there was a lot of blue and gold and a whole lot of energy in that crowd, and so I was from some old guy now in the business. It motivated me to see people that passionate. I think when you talk about public schools, it never ceases to amaze me that when you get on social media or something, somebody comes up and starts talking about alternative education, different ways to receive education today. And I'm not throwing rocks at them, but it seems like everybody's projecting their problem onto public education. But man, if there was any way possible to bottle Convocation up, I would retire today and start selling it, because it was infectious and it was on display of everything and why public education is important. You had students there, you had staff members there. They were all focused. They were all bought into to what was going on. And, the good Lord didn't make us to be in silos or isolated. He made us to all walk with one another. And, in the Bible it talks about loving thy neighbor. And so he intended for us to be social creatures. And so when you take social and emotional away from learning, then you have took something away that's very special. And I think that's what makes public education so special, is you have all of these folks from different walks of life and backgrounds coming together to serve the next generation of society. And you have these children that's coming through that is maturing, and to me that relationship that meets there is so special. The community, when I talk about what it is to be part of a community, and whether it's UIL or not UIL, that public education of bringing folks together and learning how to interact so that they can be successful in life is definitely something to be part of.
Yeah, and that's the third one that I've been a part of since I joined. As we're recording this, I started working in CCISD exactly 2 years ago today, and my first week on the job was Convocation. But that year was the year Lee Ledger Auditorium was out of commission because the fire curtain. We were waiting on the motor to sail across the Atlantic, and so. Of the three that I've been a part of, you have to take that one out because it was very different. But this year's was much more energetic than last year, and I just think that was on the teachers. I think they were more enthusiastic, and I think they were ready to start the year off on a good note. One thing that I want to make sure that we're not remiss in not doing is thanking our partners at HEB Plus of Coppers Cove, who donated 5 $100 gift cards that we were able to give away. And they asked us how we wanted to do it. Well, one of the things that you and I have been talking a lot about and focusing on quite a bit is school spirit and community spirit. So we raffled 3 off, and we were able to give 2 away to some spirited staff members. And so that picture you can see in Friday's Cove Leader Press e-edition. And we just want to make sure that we take a moment to thank HEB Plus of Copper's Cove, who's been a wonderful partner of the district.
Absolutely. You know, when you talk about supporting schools across the state of Texas, HEB's right up there on the Mount Rushmore of sponsors and donors, of giving back and making sure that they're supporting public education everywhere. And I can't say enough about that. And to tie into our whole, what we're trying to do is to build a greater sense, a more robust culture, unity. In today's society, everybody's divisive. Everybody's mad about something. Everybody thinks that you got to do exactly. If there's 20 things that comes out, if you do 19 of them in their favor, they're mad because you should have done that one more thing. And so you got to agree with people 20% or 20 times out of 20. And so, but that's not what public education's about. Our school system functions best around unity. When we bring groups of people together and we mold a consensus, that's where you really get the greatest momentum and greatest impact in the lives we serve. And so we've several times talked about painting the town blue.
Yeah.
You know, if our brand is those Bulldogs and our brand is that blue and gold, then we got to be proud of that. We got to be quite arrogant about that it is just a little bit more value in the Bulldog brand than anything else. And so when it comes to school spirit, our teachers deserve that uplifting, that unity, and no one deserves the uplifting unity and to being a part of something more than our kids do.
Right.
When you drive in Cove, and you're from an opponent or you're just visiting from another town, you need to know that our community, our businesses, our staff is behind those kids. Sometimes as a child growing up in today's society, you can feel quite lonely. But we know when kids are a part of something, when they feel like they're heard, they're seen, they're a part of something, then they're going to be more productive in anything they do.
So that's good things. Convocation, thank you to everybody who made that event a success. Other people who came and spoke with some of our teachers. Flippin, the founder of the Flippin Group, was our keynote speaker, talking about the powerful impact of positive relationships, not just between students and staff. Notice I didn't use the word teachers. It's all staff, because there's people who impact our students outside of the classroom every day. But it's the power of a positive relationship between students and staff, students and students, and staff and staff. And so we appreciate Mr. Flippin. The Coppers Cove Education Foundation, ATPE was there, and the Coppers Cove Retired Teachers Association. It was just an educators credit union as well. And so we just want to thank everybody for helping the CCISD community. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to thank our staff here in communications, because that event is a heavy lift, and they did one heck of a job helping make sure that event went off without a hitch. But definitely want to give the Coppers Cove ISD Child Nutrition Department some shine here, because they took on the task of feeding, 1,300 employees?
Absolutely.
Which is no easy task. So thank you to everybody who made that event a success. Let's move on with the program. Okay. The last time you and I talked, it was not so good news, with Williams Ledger being out of commission for an indeterminate amount of time. And I'm sure you've gotten this question. I know I've gotten this question. And I know the other three folks in this department have gotten this question. So I'm going to turn it to you and say, do we have any update on Williams Ledger Elementary School?
Yeah, I think the big update is that we all need to start the school year off with grace and understand that what happened at Williams Ledger with the roof was an act of God, and that there's really nobody to blame in that sense. That campus come online in about 1990, and that roof was well beyond its life expectancy. And so, we know that it's a very unfortunate thing that it puts people into stress, and we want to do everything that we can to lower that level of stress. And so, in order to do that, we all have to maintain a sense of grace. We know that none of those teachers, those 32, 34 teachers that had to relocate, wanted to do that. And so we've tried to make that as seamless as possible for them. We also know that in doing that we've got students that's going to go into kind of another culture of another campus, and we want to try to take that stress level off of them. We do know that every start of school in every school district in America, unless your school district built a campus out in a 500-acre cornfield, there's going to be traffic issues.
Yep.
And those things usually level themselves off in the first couple weeks. And so that will happen. We've got bus drivers and students getting acquainted with new routes. And so that takes some time to work out the kinks on that. And so I just think that we all need to approach this with grace and kind of be a little forgiving of folks, because I know that everybody wants the very best, and everybody's going to do what we need to do to serve our students. As far as the facility itself, we've got crews in the campus at Williams Ledger that are knocking the walls out, and as could be expected, we've looked and it totally validates everything we did. We've not overreacted in any sense of the means. Water got into a building, it got into the drywall, and it is what it is. And so we're going to make sure that all of that is remediated, all of the issues are addressed, and that the inside of that building is probably going to look pretty new.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to look like I've said with some of the other facility stuff, Chip and Joanna Gaines have become millionaires out of flipping houses. And I think that the same thing inside of Williams Ledger, whenever we get the keys back to it, is going to be, renovated. And so that is a heavy lift on everybody, and we understand that. But the people that are in there that are taking care of business, we're still working with our insurance adjusters, and we just want to make sure the job is done right. But we definitely will not move back into that building foreseeably before Christmas.
Yeah.
But like I said, being in a rush, being in a hurry is not what's going to guide us on this thing. We're going to make sure that it's done right, and we move back in as quickly as possible, but with all of the dynamics as safe as possible.
Not easy for anybody. You mentioned that. And so as we pivot toward back to school, one thing to keep in mind is, like Dr. Hawkins said, we don't know when that campus is going to be deemed safe for a return. So if you are a parent at Williams Ledger, Fairview Jewel, or Martin Walker, because remember in our last episode, and you can go back and watch it, that's where those students have been displaced to while Williams Ledger's campus is out of commission. Kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade at Fairview Jewel, 4th, 5th, and self-contained special education classes are at Martin Walker. So wherever your student is displaced to, and if you are a parent of a student normally at Fairview Jewel or Martin Walker, we just ask that you allow some extra time for drop-off in the mornings, because there's 200 additional students 200 to 400 additional students at that campus from what are normally there when you dropped your kid off in the spring, and from what will be there once you drop your student off following the reopening of Williams Ledger Elementary School. So, like Dr. Hawkins asked for, some grace and give yourself some extra time and understanding that this is going to take a minute for all of us. And so that's the update on Williams Ledger. Obviously, we'll update y'all every chance we can, because we understand, when you've got what is it, 650 projected students there? Mm-hmm. That's large. That's a large amount of students that are affected by this and their families. And so we wanted to make sure that we update y'all on that. We will say, and I got this question in my email, and I know you and I talked about it. Someone asked why we only split those children between those two campuses, and I want to be able to let you take it, but I want to answer that. And we had space at those two campuses, and for families with multiple students enrolled at Williams Ledger, we wanted to minimize the disruption. We can't eliminate it. In a situation like that, that's impossible. But where there was space at Fairview Jewel, there was space at Martin Walker, and so we were able to minimize, because of how close those two campuses are, the disruption to families with multiple students at Williams Ledger.
Well, it's number one, it's capacity. And so we're fortunate that we had capacity on those campuses. We don't have capacity at House Creek. House Creek is at capacity. So we can't take any more students there. Coppers Cove High School is beyond capacity. So we can't, we can't take students there. But those two campuses had capacity. Clemens Parsons had capacity as well. But we just collaborated, talked about it, and felt like that it was a great fit for the students. We felt like those two principals on those campuses, Dr. Shuck and Kelly Thompson, were two people that were going to welcome more students with an open arm, and that my deal was and is that we got 7,700 students projected in this school year. ADA, we're projecting about 7,150. That's average daily attendance, and my prayer every morning is that every kid that comes in the Cove feels like they're loved. And so I had no reservations about those two campuses. We couldn't put the entire campus, we couldn't combine Williams Ledger with Martin Walker, and some of that was we have a spillover of programs because Coppers Cove High School is not big enough to continue to have the workforce readiness and the CTE programs fully on that campus. We've had to move some of the health careers and cosmetology to Martin Walker, and so Martin Walker's already hosting some students, and so now they're hosting more students. But we couldn't move all of Williams Ledger there. That was beyond capacity. It was beyond capacity to move all of the students to Fairview Jewel, and so it just seemed like a real good fit, real good place that those kids can go and continue to be loved. Real good cooperative staffs right there that's gonna do the same thing as their leadership is, and so and then I also stress this is that if you got any questions or concerns, reach out. If your child goes to Williams Ledger, reach out to your principal, talk to her about it. I know she's stressed as well, but we're all gonna be okay. That's the main thing is we don't need to be in too big a hurry. We need to take our time. We need to relax, breathe just a little bit, and communicate with one another. Reach out to Ms. Cresswell and hey, here's my concerns. What can you tell me about it? And I know she's been working diligently to make this transition viable and work, and she'd be glad to field any issues or concerns you have as a parent.
And around the clock at that, to blow up her spot a little bit, there's events during the pre-service that we've left, and okay, Miss Cresswell, go home.
Yes, yes. And the other thing is this, is meet the teacher. You know, you're going to get to go on
Yeah.
the campus and meet the teacher, and, you know, you can get your questions answered there. I just want to make sure that parents get their questions answered and they feel at peace. I do. You know, I tell everybody I got 7,700 kids plus 3 adult kids, and then 2 bulldogs at my house that we take care of, and I want them all loved, and I want them all took care of, and I want parents to be at peace, because, you know, every year I'm around a kindergartner's dropping off or pre-Kers dropping off, and I know how traumatic that is. I dropped 3 girls off myself at one point, and so, you know, I just want to reassure everybody that look, we're not going to be perfect.
No.
But we are going to work hard to meet the needs of those we serve.
Looking ahead at back to school next week again, as we're recording this on Thursday, August 7th, we are a week out from the start of school, with students returning on August 14th. So next Thursday, Dr. Hawkins, at about 7 o'clock, the doors will fly open and students will rush in for the first time since May 22nd. What should parents know as we get set for everybody to return to school?
Well, you know, I think any time that politics gets infused into the education system, it really puts a constraint on the ability of students to reach their optimum. And you know, listen, I'm a guy that's certified to teach government. I'm a political science nut. I love political science. I believe in our democratic republic that we have and our forefathers set out for us. And so you're saying, well, if you believe in the democratic republic and you believe in all these things, Dr. August, what are you talking about with politics? Well, sometimes the greater good, the greater will doesn't shine through. And so what I'm talking about specifically is the further you get from a child's education, the worse the decision becomes when it's implemented into reality. And so that's why I'm not opposed to the U.S. Department of Education downsizing and pushing back to the states where education should be. And I'm a big proponent of local control. And never in the history of my career or my existence on this planet has local control been any less than it is today. And so I know the Board of Trustees is good people. They're locally elected here. They've done a fantastic job. They you know, have such a commitment. Those folks on that Board of Trustees have such a commitment to the love of Cove and the mission of what we're trying to do. That's where decisions should be made. And yet we've got laws that prohibit that from happening. And so I think the thing that parents need to know is that the people on that board, and myself included, are law-abiding people. And so when there is a law, we're going to respect the law and be part of the process to try and mold decisions to best meet the needs of our kids. I think the one that's probably on most people's mind is this cell phone ban.
House Bill 1481.
1481 has caused a whole lot of you know, excitement, I guess you could say, on social media, in the news media, in the coffee shops, and in the houses all across the state of Texas. And that is the ban on cell phones during the instructional day. And you know, at the next board meeting, the board members will be considering that policy, that resolution. And I think we've taken a very common sense approach to that whole process. Number one, I have no intentions of not abiding by the law. The law is the law. And so we're going to do what we need to comply with the law. When a law when a bill becomes a law and the governor signs off on it, it goes through that whole, I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only, for those of you who are my age, you know what I'm talking about, Schoolhouse Rock. And so you go through that process, your bill becomes a law, the governor has signed off on it, it goes to the Texas Education Agency for any rulemaking, it comes through the Texas Association of School Boards for policy drafts and updates, it comes through your local attorneys, and then it's considered by the board. And so I think we have tried to be very common sense in the approach. You know, if your child has a medical need for the phone or Apple Watch or any of those items that is on that law, you know, they can continue to do that. We just have to have documentation that there is a medical need, and there'll be a process that we push out that talks about those things. But we haven't gone overboard and bought any of these pouches or have these little cell phone lockers anywhere, anything like that. I think, number one, that this whole law should have been rest with every locally elected school board throughout the state of Texas. But it wasn't. People in Austin made the law, and you know, and so here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to spend an inordinate amount of money on these pouches and all of that stuff. That is some vendor getting rich, and I understand that there is a grant that you can apply for out there, and you can buy these pouches.
They just sent the email for another one of those today. TEA did.
It's constantly coming, and so I just think that, you know, that how much of that bill was driven by the financial aspect for vendors and not really for the needs of kids. And I'm not saying everybody that voted for it, that's what it was. I'm not alleging that, but it does smell bad from my standpoint. And so we're going to be real common sense, and the board is going to consider the policy, the resolution, and all of that. And then the district this next week will roll out the regulations and the procedures for that. But kids can turn the phone off when they come in the building in the mornings. They can put it in their backpack. They can put it away. We don't need to see it, or we don't need to hear it until they've left the building. Kind of like Elvis has left the building, okay? And so we want to do the same thing there with cell phones, and that's the merit of the law. I know that some people have put out differing information that, and there's some school districts going to break the law and let kids use them between classes and stuff like that. But it's been through TASB, it's been through TEA, it's been through our school attorneys, and that's not what the law says. It says school day. And so, you know, our Board of Trustees is defining school day as school day. And, you know, so they turn it off. It's not seen. It's not heard. The kids that have a medical reason can use it. Everybody else is going to focus and do what we need to do. It's in the education process as it is. But here's the deal, you know, kids have that phone on them, and heaven forbid if there's an emergency or something, then, you know, if we're having to evacuate the campus or something like that, they've got their phones on, and, you know, there's not going to be any issue with emergencies and things like that. But during the school day, if the kid has an emergency, not that the campus has an emergency, then they need to do like we did back in the old days, go down to the principal's office, and they can call home. Mama can call, or daddy can call, or whatever, can call the school switchboard, and we can get information relayed to folks in that manner. And so, like I say, I think it's a common sense approach. I think that from the standpoint the staff know that they have to comply with the law. And so I just ask the students to, hey, let's not let this be a distraction. Let's not let this be anything. Let's comply with the law, and then let's go on doing things that bulldogs do, and that's win in life. And the will to prepare to win is of utmost importance. So we need to go and prepare the things that we need to do. But if somebody chooses behavior that's not the standard in which has been set, then that phone will have to be confiscated, kind of a warning on that first deal. 24 hours later, at the end of that next day, they can pick that phone up. Second time, if somebody didn't learn or there was whatever, same thing, 48 hours later, they can pick that phone up. And then from there, it hits into the student code of conduct with, ISS, and the track that hopefully we can get folks to understand that, that there's a process that can eventually lead you to off-campus placement. And we want none of that. What we want is, look, it's the law. Let's comply with it. Let's move on. Let's focus on the things, because here's the deal. Staff doesn't have time to be phone police. And so, I just ask everybody to respect the law, respect the staff, and let's not turn this into a problem. Let's turn it into, hey, listen, if you don't like the law, reach out to your locally elected representatives on the the Texas House of Representatives, or your state senator, Shelby Slauson and Senator Flores, and say, hey, listen, we don't like the law. We want you to change the law, or we want to for you to amend the law, or whatever it is that you want to do. That's your right. But right now, I think that we've got a good path forward, and we will continue to try to educate folks and tell them what the standard of behavior is and what we need to do to comply with that standard, to meet that standard. And then if those that don't apply, what we're going to do in that regard for consequences.
So obviously, HB 1481 is the largest change that came down from legislature that families are going to notice for public schools. The education savings accounts in Senate Bill 2 aren't going to be as prevalent during the school day in CCISD. The pay raises for teachers in HB 2 and the $55 added to the basic allotment, that's not really going to be evident during the school day inside the classroom. This one will be. And I know that you hinted at it. The definition in what's going to the board for consideration next week of the school day is the school day. Mm-hmm. For clarification, because I know we're going to get this question, is that opening bell to closing bell, or walk in the door to walk out the door?
When the kid walks into the building, they need to have their phone put away. And then when the last bell rings, and then they need to walk out of the building and they can pop their phone out. I've had the question by a couple moms that, hey, my kid's going on a volleyball game. They're going to go over to Temple and play volleyball. Well, that's outside the school day. And I know that school bus is an extension of school property. And you say, well, that school day isn't over with for that kid until they come back and get with, well, that's a stretch. I don't think that anybody that's going to hold up in court. It's school day. And so school day, that's extracurricular. Mm-hmm. And so the curricular is during the day. And so when they walk out of that building, they can pop their phone up. But it does not, like I say, your kid going to go to a swim meet or whatever, then yes, your kid has the phone on the campus, out of sight, out of hearing. School day's over with and they take off to a meet somewhere, then yes, they can have their phone.
So that's the clarification there on the definition of school day as it comes to CCISD's implementation of House Bill 1481. What else, as kids return, what else are parents going to notice that is either different or enhanced for 2025-26?
Well, we hope that they don't notice a whole lot different. I mean, that's we talked about 1481 and that being a law, but on the board agenda is about 7 other resolutions and laws that Austin has said we have to have that we're going to do before September 1st, because that's what the law says. But we hope that it doesn't impact our kids at all. And what I'm talking about is, it's controversy. It would be great if we could focus on making laws that hit at the core concept of what we're trying to do in public education. Our assessment system is broke.
Oh, yeah.
And instead of addressing that, on the board agenda is going to be DEI policy, sexual transitioning policy. And that's what I'm saying. We don't want our folks to see that. It's not a problem in CCISD. And, what anybody's sexual preference is really none of anybody's business. We're not in that business.
No.
We're in the business of educating kids and loving on our bulldogs and making sure that we're setting them up for great opportunities in life after their post-secondary experiences. And so, those policies are going to be on there. We haven't had an issue with DEI. Okay? A bulldog's a bulldog. It does not matter what a kid's race, anything else, socioeconomic status, their gender. Every kid deserves the love from all of us in this community, just like every other kid does. And if we could get back to that, we wouldn't have school shootings.
Nope.
We wouldn't have bullying. We wouldn't have all that. So that's the core that I operate with. Every kid is expected to be treated like they're my kid. And so, that's what I'm calling on folks to do. But yet we've got laws and things like that about DEI. Well, it's a non-issue with us, and we're going to make sure it's a non-issue. We're going to treat everybody with common courtesy, dignity, and respect. Now, sometimes that includes me too, but nonetheless, I also, the sexual transitioning, that staff isn't supposed to help kids with sexual transition, and so I hope not, because that shouldn't be anything that we're engaged in. It hadn't been a problem here. We want to make sure it's not a problem, but nonetheless, we've got policies and everything like that. And I know there's going to be a whole lot of legal stuff blow up all over the state on all of this, including the library. We've got a policy coming about library books and everything like that. And I've been here since January, and I hadn't heard anybody talk to me about a library book being inappropriate, because we don't want that. We want to make sure that we're representing the values, of our community, and we're going to do a good job trying to set that standard. And I think our board of trustees has done a great job in making sure that's represented. But so all of those things, we want to make sure that there's no change at all to. And so I think that's the biggest emphasis that we could put on starting the year off. I think from a standpoint of what's different, I'm very proud of the trustees' work that they've done to have every student in CCISD have an opportunity for a free breakfast or a free lunch. I think that's big. And look, there's people out there that I've had phone calls. Hey, Dr. Hawkins, can you believe I saw online somebody was criticizing giving kids free lunches? And then I've heard people complain about, well, it ain't a free lunch, Dr. Hawkins. Well, it's free to the kid.
It's free to the kid, and that's the whole point.
And that's what we're trying to communicate. We're not trying to communicate with the taxpayer. We're trying to communicate with the kid and say, hey, son, young lady, you got a free lunch. You got an opportunity for your stomach to be full. And right, wrong, or indifference, in our society, it's important for us to understand that doesn't happen all the time. There are kids that are hungry. And so I am very unapologetic about, we're supposed to do no harm to kids. That's part of our educator code of ethics. And so I'm elate. This isn't a new program. My former district, we started that thing in about 2017 or 2018, and it was fantastic for the kids in that school district. And I know it'll be fantastic for kids here. But I applaud the Board of Trustees for doing that and ensuring that all of our kids at least have an opportunity to have a belly full, because they do not. You've seen the Snickers commercial about being hangry, and kids don't function well when they're hungry.
Neither do adults. my wife doesn't let me go to church on Sunday unless I've had breakfast before we leave. But we even heard a student talk about it in Dog Tales, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, facebook.com/Coppers Cove ISD. If you have a meal, you can focus on learning. You're not thinking, I'm hungry. I didn't get lunch today. I don't know if there's going to be dinner at home. And so, and you've heard for years when schools have stayed open in the winter, when there's people who want the school to close, whatever the reason is, whether there's weather or not, and they make the decision late or they stay open. I would bet that 99.99% of those superintendents have said that it's because they don't know if those kids are going to eat if they close the doors that day, which is a completely valid concern. So now we're still talking about when the schools are open here, obviously, but with having that community eligibility provision from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, if the schools are open, everybody can eat. There's no alternative meal because your account went negative. There's no account to go negative. If you're a student in a Coppers Cove ISD school, you have the ability to eat, and that is huge.
Well, I just think back to my time early in my career, and I can't tell you how much cafeteria food I bought for somebody other than myself. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of kids that I bought food for. There's a lot of kids that I bought Christmas presents for, that didn't have Christmas presents. And, I absolutely think it just isn't who I am to put that out there. As far as I didn't do it for me, because nobody ever knew about it, and I never will do it for me. If I do something, I don't like to take a picture doing it. I'm doing it because, of where my heart is. But in today's society, we have kids that come to us with trauma. We have kids that come to us from very tough situations. And, if we can ensure that a child is fed, that is probably one of the top things that we can do for that kid.
Yeah.
Because if a kid's sitting out there hungry, and kids come into the world and they didn't ask for it, but they come here, and I think as a community, we all have an obligation to take care of each other. Love thy neighbor. Well, if we really love those kids, then how are you going to let a kid walk around hungry? And the school district has done a great job in the past of paying for that. But the thing about that is they have to take the money away from doing. If the school district picks up a tab or forgives somebody's lunch, it really takes away from the opportunities you give the kid, because you only get a certain amount of money. And so you're taking away from maybe something that could extend, supplement, or enhance that child's education in order to feed them. And so by the CEP program, we'll be able to feed those kids. And like I said, this isn't anything new. I've been doing this quite a few years, but I am excited now that it's a non-issue with our kids.
Right. Okay. Another thing happening next week is the regular Board of Trustees meeting. So it's the workshop at noon on Monday, the final one during the day because of the legislature. And then the regular meeting 6 p.m. Tuesday night. That agenda will come out around the time this podcast is published. And so when that agenda is published, what are people around the community going to see on that agenda, and what does it mean?
Well,
I can think of one thing.
I can think of several things. I think that the big hammer, the volume of it. You know, if you want a copy of that board agenda, you want us to print it, we're going to have to charge you for it because of the volume that is in that thing. If you want a paper copy. Because I'm telling you, I saw it on my desk when I come through the draft, and it's about a couple reams of paper. And so it is very heavy. There is a lot of consent agenda items. There is a lot of action items, or several action items on there. I won't say a lot. But here's the deal. It makes me feel good, the things that's on that agenda, because we're talking about things that's going to impact our district. We're talking about things that are going to impact our kids and staff and the whole community on multiple levels. And I think it's important that, you know, we just had a board workshop. And so, you know, here's the things that come out of that workshop is that, and you can watch that, you know, we've got it taped, and so go on there and watch it. But toward the end of this month, we will look at consideration of adopting a budget for the 25-26 school year. We'll adopt a tax rate before August 31st, that by law. And you know, there's no one within an hour's drive of us absolutely that has a lower tax rate than we do. And then the other thing is this. We got about $251,000 for about 700 staff members that the board could use money in order to give raises, pay adjustments for our employees. And then, you know, there was some of our teachers that got a teacher retention allotment from the state. But when you look at the budget and where it is today, you know, biblically, there's a point of scripture that talks about, you know, your heart is where your treasure is. And so when you look that 83% of that budget is tied up in staff salaries, that's very impacting for me. 83% of that budget. And that's not totality. It's really more than that, because here's why. There's contracted services that we're pulling people in with too. So when you start looking at the contracted services, when you're looking at things like the dual credit classes, where we have a contracted person that is teaching that's not on our salary, 83% is just those salaries are actually CCISD employees. And so beyond that, there's actually more than that. It's higher than 83. But 83% of the budget is locked in to the employees that are here that are coming to make a difference for the lives of our kids. And so I think that's the good news of the budget. But the other thing that's resounding is that, you know, as of today, the budget is balanced. And
I don't want to skip past that yet. $6.5 million budget deficit was adopted, I think, my first month on the job 2 years ago. That would be for fiscal year 23-24. Fiscal year 24-25, it was down to, what was it, 2.6, 2 point something million budget deficit.
Yeah, like 2.8.
So about $4 million makeup there. But to get from 2 years ago, $6.5 million budget deficit, which is what, 8% of the budget, to balancing it. That sounds like a small feat, especially for those of us who, you know, at home, and you made this analogy with the board today, you don't operate with a deficit budget at home. And
you
so,
don't loan.
no,
or
right.
you have to file bankruptcy.
Right.
I mean,
to get
or
from
borrow
that,
some money from somebody.
right, to get from that, roughly 8-9% deficit to balancing the budget, how enormous of a feat is that? And what does that do for the district long term?
Well, it's putting us on a path of better fiscal responsibility. And when you look at that, we've not only operated 2 years in a deficit budget, but the staff has operated 2 years without any salary increase too. And I know there's people out, well, the state sent you all that money. We read on social media where the state had the largest infusion of money that was out there that it's ever made. Well, first of all, remember, if you hadn't paid your car note in 6 months and you go in and pay up, that's the largest car payment that you've made in the history of owning your car.
Yeah.
But really, what have you done? You've just met part of your obligation. And so the pay raises went directly to some people. But you over half of the district received no money from Austin. $251,000, in a $80+ million budget. That's minuscule.
Yeah.
And when you look at only a $500,000 of that, the board had any discretion on what to do with. Okay? So when you start to stack those things up, you say, well, how did you do it? Or how did the board do it? What's the dynamics of that? Well, building fiscally sound business models is the way that you do that. Looking at, and I tell everybody, I was Doging before the Dodgers was ever a name. Elon can fly rockets better than me, but I've built a career on making sure that the school districts in which I serve have worked fiscally responsible and they're efficient and effective with what they're doing. And so, yes, the Board of Trustees had to ante up more money in order to make sure that 3% pay raise went to all the other employees, that the board valued all employees when House Bill 2 didn't. Yeah. House Bill 2 didn't value all employees, but the CCISD Board of Trustees did. And so that's part of the equation. But obviously, if you only had $500,000 more of discretionary funds, and you said we went from a 6 to a 2, that $500,000 didn't balance the budget.
No, it didn't.
And so creating models that the school can operate with and being more financially responsible is what makes you be able to balance a budget. And so, alignment, trying to make sure that we're aligning staff with expenses, with revenues, making sure we're aligning programmatically with staff and revenues. And I think the deal with the budget is this. 83% of the budget was the alignment of students and staff, and that we have lost students over quite a period of time. So you can't keep funding things at the same rate that you funded them. You've got to align that, so that financially it is solvent. So you do that, and then the other thing I'm proud of is every director or principal that came in that had an ask was granted their ask in the budget currently. So there wasn't any deal about, a director coming in, oh, Dr. Hawkins, we need this. In this day and time, everybody's got a story, and being a victim is in vogue. But everybody came in that asked for something that got what their needs-based budget was prioritized to be. So there wasn't anybody, no, we're not doing that or anything like that. Now, listen, we're not out of the woods. There is a great bear standing in front of us in next year's budget. This budget's going to shake out fine, but the bear is in next year's budget because our utilities are going to probably double. Insurance is going up. And how do we ensure that our staff gets something every year? How do we build that into the culture of CCISD as I built into my former district, to where every year our staff is getting something, because our staff's cost of living is going up. So they have to keep pace with inflation. And so I think that I know I don't speak for the Board of Trustees, but I have heard numerous times that they want our staff taken care of. And so in order to do that, that has to be your first priority in building budgets. And so that's something that we're going to try to look forward in the past. But listen, we're just at ground zero of building budgets and having a district function that meets the needs of our kids. And next year will be a challenge, but we're trying to set this up for 3 to 5 years. And in order to do that, we've got to make some changes.
Yep.
We got to do some things differently. There's some things that we've done in the past that are redundant, and we've got to be more efficient in. And so we're looking from one corner of the district to the other to make sure that everything we're doing is operating more effectively.
Anything else you want to touch on with looking forward to next week's board meeting? Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you there, but to balance the budget, given where that budget number was 2 years ago, I felt like was worth diving into a little more.
I think that's an understatement. I think that the trustees deserve a parade. And so somebody needs to call the city and see if we can't get a permit, because I'm excited. I'm excited from the standpoint of, think of what the trustees have accomplished. Okay? They have addressed the employee salary instrument and have pointed us in a direction that, you know, we can look forward to as employees, and they have ensured that our students are going to get fed twice a day. They have made sure that they're building for the future, building for things that are aligning things and making things effective. I'm very proud of the work that they've done to balance that budget, because here's the deal: you can't keep doing it.
No.
At some point, that deficit is going to take you under. And so, you know, I'm not calling anybody's name or anything like that, but, you know, I know families that live and they have different ways of looking at things. And, you know, I've heard that there's families that have people in their family that has a bunch of Amazon packages shows up on their doorstep. And all these Amazon packages come at a cost. And so this cost is going out here, and you got families that are spending this money, and you go 3 months and you look around and you say, well, where'd all those boxes go? Where'd the money go that we spent? And you know what? I've heard that there's families that say, well, I don't know where it went. But there's also rumors that there's families that, you know, do a good job and meet the fiduciary responsibilities of the family, and then all of a sudden they can go out and they can buy a boat or something, you know, and they've saved their money up. And so, you know, hopefully that we're that second kind of family, not the first kind of family that I've heard stories about.
Stories?
Well, no comment. I'm pleading the fifth on that. So
I like that. I'm going to go with stories on that one myself. The last couple of things that I want to touch on, and then we'll get out of here, is the things that we're looking forward to. This first one that I want to touch on, it was a bear of a project. It took us a year to make sure that the framework matched other districts and was secure and worked with our systems. And this was a Board of Trustees goal. This is a goal that we set in our strategic plan a year ago. Improving communication with our community, with our campus communities, and making sure they all understand the programs we offer in CCISD and the great things happening in the classrooms. All of that to say, campus social media pages are here. And if you need to know whether it is a legitimate page or not, each campus name is followed by a hyphen and a Coppers Cove ISD, but now the campuses have a much more direct route to be able to communicate with our families on their phones where they are on the go, and showcase their students I think it's a long time coming, and it's something I've been working on since I got here. But to finally kind of get it there, I can tell you there's weight off my shoulders today. But I think that the parents are going to see a good benefit from it. At least I hope they are.
Well, it's definitely one of the board goals that they set out, for a district to accomplish. And, I've had a lot of feedback. If right now you look at Coppers Cove ISD and you don't feel like you're getting enough information, then, I want to try to help direct you to more of that information. This podcast alone, I think, number one, it's on social media. It's on our social media pages, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. So, as a famous radio host has once coined, anywhere you listen to great podcasts, this podcast is there. You can get it on your phone while you're driving to work, while you're driving to soccer on the weekends. Our goal is to reach you where you are. And so that's so important. I think, I wanted to give Kurtis the opportunity to say that because, here's the deal. 80% of the voting public in this community is not connected to our school. And we want to make sure that we are pushing out information. 72% of those people can be reached on social media. But we're not leaving any stone unturned. That's not our only reach. But I've had a lot of positive feedback about this podcast. I've had a lot of positive feedback about our board meetings being recorded. Our social media reach is fixing to blow up and continue to reach more people. We've got the Growler and the Cove Leader Press that comes out regularly. That's kind of a spotlight of pride for us. Districts that are doing great things, we want to make sure that we're telling stories of pride, not necessarily reacting to things. And so I think that's important that quality districts push out moments of pride. People call them different things, but moments of awesome, moments of Oz. We're the dogs, and so I call them moments of possumness or moments of pause. And so that the Growler is specifically one of those things that we push out. But here's the other thing. I'm fixing to this fall. I'm going to speak it anywhere anybody will allow me to talk to them about our school district, because I think that's important. I've met a lot of people and become real acclimated here and love it in Cove. But I want to go on tour and talk to anybody about the positive things that's going on in our school district. It doesn't matter if it's a group of ministers, if it's a civic group, or anything in between. Parents, retired teachers, group of businesses, Chamber of Commerce, you name it. I'm all game to come talk to you and answer your questions, tell you about our school district, tell you about how you can get involved, tell you about how you can get information. No one has come to my office that, we've took people and steered them in a different direction because, they needed a different point of contact.
Right.
But I'm saying this to say from the standpoint of I've welcomed everyone to come talk to me. My office is busy because I'm on the move, but there's a welcoming just culture there and climate. We want to talk to our people. Email me. I've returned emails, or I've sent them to people who could best answer those questions. And I have not turned down an opportunity to go speak to anybody. And so we are very open and welcoming. It's like our long-range facility planning committee. I told everybody from the start, I wanted 100 members on there max, because it's hard to get 100 people to come to some type of consensus on anything. And so it was open to any and everybody in this community. All they had to do was email, come by. We started out with about 80 or whatnot, and it's bounced between 50 and 80 or whatnot. But there is an openness and a welcoming culture that we have, that we want to engage you, that we want to talk to you, we want to keep you informed, and we want to let you know about the things that you can do to help accelerate the things that's going on in Bulldog Nation.
More podcasts to come, more Hawks Talk newsletters to come, which we'll work on. That's available on the CCISD website, by the way. It's on the communications department page. It's on the superintendent page. It's ccisd.com/superintendent. And so lots of ways to keep up with the awesome things happening in Coppers Cove ISD. Other things I'm looking forward to. Accountability next week. We find out next week where the state rated us in 2025. They'll announce 2024. That's already up on our website, ccisd.com/news. That is, there are districts who are dreading that day. Not here.
No, number one is I don't believe it. The whole deal with suing the state and everything. I think that all got out of hand about that deal, and I've never sued the state over accountability myself, and so that's why we've got the 2024 already up there. We're open, we're transparent, we're proud of the things that the Bulldogs do right here. Is it a shortcoming on behalf of the state? Absolutely it is. Here's the deal. In our last round of testing, AI graded a lot of our kids' work. Okay, and hey, listen, I'm all about engaging in AI and having our kids learn it, having our teachers learn it, so they know the dark part of it, they know the applicable part of it, and they can be ethical users of AI. And so I'm not anti-AI. Let me say that at the beginning. But I've got friends all over the state in school districts, and they have been paying district money to rescore tests. And what they found is between the lowest one was 25% and the highest one was 80%, that AI scored them failing, and once they were rescored by humans, they were scored as passing. And so, like I say, these scores aren't a whole lot to be. I kind of downplay them. We do a great job. That's what's expected of the Bulldogs. We're going to be successful. It's just a shame that we don't have an accountability system, an assessment system that meets the needs of our kids, parents, and community. And so that's something that needs to change. I applaud Representative Buckley for having the vision and trying to do that against a lot of big money donors, and he's got a tall hill to climb, but he deserves our support. There's a definite need to do that. But yeah, as far as those accountability deals goes, we're doing great. We can do better, but the depiction that you're going to get when those scores are released really aren't even as good as what the Bulldogs did anyway.
That is a good point. But so that'll be out next week. All right. You have anything else?
Oh yeah. the big hammers, that we didn't talk about on the board agenda, is the number one question that I've been asked in this district since January 14th.
The B word.
Yeah. Facilities. I'm not even using that word. The facilities. It's coming. It's on the board agenda. The Long Range Facility Planning Committee is going to make a recommendation Tuesday night on the deal on the board agenda, and I'll just say that I have been with them through that planning process. The facility plan today is not like the facility plan from the bond. There is very much differences in it. But I also say this. We have currently proposed a maximum tax rate of 75 cents. That's the lowest of anywhere around. And so, look, I understand nobody likes taxes, including myself. We're a nation that was founded on being anti-tax. But the legislature does not have the whole taxing deal right from a property tax standpoint. But that's not our fault. And it should not be reflective on the kids of Cove. And, the cycles are, well, first of all, if you want something done about that, then don't let your representatives and senators gaslight you in some way that blame things on the local entities. They can solve problems. Different streams of revenue that's coming into the state should relieve property tax burdens on the taxpayers. I'm all for that, and I will do anything that I can to lead that voice. But nonetheless, we've got what we've got. We've got to work with it. Just like the broken assessment system, we got to work with it. Understand that it's probably not as accurate as what it needs to be, but we got to work through that. Just like the taxing system that I'm talking about. But in most non-fast growth districts, the taxpayers invest in their kids about every 10 years. And it's been 20 years in Cove since that investment was made on any type of large scale. And so we've got a lot of old buildings. There's a lot of needs. The committee has went through that, and they understand that there is needs from the standpoint of roofs, lighting, HVAC. There's space needs at Cove High. There's cafeteria needs. There's programmatic needs to where that school was built a long time ago, and it was not built with today's education in mind, to where we're preparing a workforce. Kids need skills, crafts, and trades, and it was built back in the day that it was just maybe ag classes and home ec classes.
Right.
And then there's no bigger advocate for agriculture than me. And so I'm not throwing rocks, but that agriculture that was offered back in those days isn't the ag that's offered today. And it's not the career technology that's offered today. And so programmatically, our facility does not line to meet the needs of the students. And so we've got that issue that's out there. We've got space issues because we've outgrown some of our spaces, like our cafeteria, and people will say, well, I don't want to spend any money on athletics or whatever. Well, listen, I'm unapologetic about that too. I've had people in this community tell me that athletics saved their life, and they're alumni now. And so I'm not going to back away from that. I'm for anything kids do, I am their greatest champion and always will be. But when kids doesn't have adequate locker spaces, we need to meet the needs of that. We need to ensure that our kids have adequate locker spaces in athletics and in band. Our band program is poised to grow, and the band hall is not functioning to where the band halls are across the state that our kids compete with. We need more space in our band hall, and so we've got space issues, we've got updating issues, we've got programmatic issues that all need to be addressed. It all went through that committee. The committee has listened to the public. I've listened to our community. I've heard everything, and here's the deal. I don't mind talking to anybody anywhere about our kids, and I'm unapologetic. When you look out there and you start thinking about our kids, they deserve our very best. I didn't say that they deserve, Mar-a-Lago. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But they do deserve a standard, and we're not at that standard. And so something has to be done. Okay. Some of the things I heard was that we need to build a new high school. Well, you don't have the funding capacity to build a new high school.
That bonding capacity since the 2024 election dropped by $26 million, and that doesn't even account for inflation at that point.
Right. So to build a new high school, if some people will put the junior high over there, folks, the numbers, we've run the numbers every way in the world. To build a new high school, you're over $200 million. And that doesn't include gyms and all of the ancillary programs that goes along with a high school. And so you don't have that bonding capacity. You're not there. And I've heard, well, what about if we build a standalone freshman center or something like that? Well, once again, you still got kids that do not have programmatic needs being met. You still got to do something in the building you got. And so that's a cost. And now you're adding on 60 to 70 million for a freshman class somewhere that doesn't include those ancillary buildings either. It does not include the utilities, the millions of dollars worth of utilities, nor does it include the land that we would have to buy to do that.
Right.
And so all of those things are really cost prohibitive. And so when the architect started looking at this plan or looking at the needs and trying to make a plan, you know, the thing that I kept hearing was everybody wanted to be fiscally responsible. Look, you know, we're not looking at a Platinum or King Ranch. We just want the Ford XLT F-150. And so that, you know, we started looking at things along those lines of what can we do to get the biggest bang for our buck to meet the needs of kids. Just something that met the needs, not the wants, not Mar-Lago. You know, this isn't, that wasn't what we were trying to accomplish. Just be efficient. And so I think this plan does. I think the plan encompasses and rates 3 campuses. It rates Coppers Cove Junior High, it rates Fairview Jewel and Coppers Cove High, all that would have substantial work done on them. And Cove High, the darling or the main thing in this whole plan is that we have a school within a school. You look at some of the schools like Forney ISD that has an opportunity center. They call it OC. That's for their career tech kids. Real similar deal, except we're just doing a school within a school. We're putting that footprint in a area of ground that Coppers Cove already owns. We're using the economy of scale to really fund that thing, but it is the whole meat of that plan is to ensure that kids are workforce ready, have the opportunity to be workforce ready when they leave Cove High. We're looking at career tech being the heart and soul of what we're trying to accomplish there, so that they can get the tools and have the experiences they need in order to go out and become cosmetologists, welders, plumbers, HVAC, that they can come out and do the skills, crafts, and trades that 60% of our kids want. And so that whole thing is the bright shining star in the plan. And so the challenges that we've had to do is this. Listen, we've lost 16% of our buying power. Now you say 16% of your buying power, that's 16% is not much. I tip in a restaurant more than that. Well, I'm sure you do. But when you think about that last bond was a $175 million bond, and you do the math on 16% of that, that's nothing to sneeze at.
And now the bonding capacity that the district has wouldn't even allow the district to seek a bond that large.
Not with when you throw the inflation in, because it's $175 million. That's bonding capacity, and then you've lost 16%. So how do you navigate that? How do you make sure that the plan meets the needs of the kids, that's reasonable, that takes into account all of these things? And listen, I know the last bond deal said, hey, listen, we're growing. Well, we're not growing. This bond simply meets the needs of our kids, number one. Number two, I think that it also talked about that safety and security would take care of all of the campuses with safety and security. Well, we're doing that through our M&O budget and grants right now. We're on a process of taking care of safety and security and trying to enhance that at all of our campuses, and so on and so forth. And so the other thing the boards have done is that they've also come in here and they've designated fund balance, and they've said, you know, here's where we're designating this. on that board agenda. When I drove up, listen, I'm all for kids in anything that they do. We need to give them their best. You know, we have on the board agenda for our band kids to get new uniforms for the first time in 15 years. We've got instruments that's falling apart, and so we've got, you know, well over $250,000 of investment in our band program in uniforms as well as instruments to get them, you know, stepped up. Our baseball, softball programs, you saw that they really did a good job in the spring of asserting themselves with the quality of what is expected to be a Bulldog, to represent our community. And so those two facilities, the baseball, softball field, is on the agenda to be voted on, so that we can put, you know, quality turf in there. The baseball team lost about 20-something days in practices because the field is just horrible.
The field is a
drainage.
bathtub with grass.
You know, Bulldog's supposed to have a pound, or, you know, or a doghouse, and that means that there's some element of dryness about it. And yet we should have changed their name to the Gators because there was a swamp out in right field. And then you look over there at the baseball softball deal, and it's kind of like get dizzy when you look at it because it's unlevel. You throw a ball out and it rolls from center field over to left field, and so both of those areas need to be addressed. When I applied for the job, my wife, I was sitting at the high school and I was looking at all the facilities, and she calls me and she says, well, what does it look like? Because, hey, we didn't know anybody in Cove. We hadn't been to Cove, and so I wanted to ride around. I came to spend the night at the Best Western. I wanted to see the community and especially see the facilities. And I said, well, we got problems with the baseball, softball field. I'm not going to say exactly the way I said that because it probably isn't appropriate for this show, but that baseball field is the worst facility that we have in the district of anything, anywhere. The backstop, the netting is being held together by zip ties. And, you know, if you want to be the district of choice,
No.
you can't make that sale, you know. And so I'm excited that the board gets to consider that for those kids and the staff and the community, because I think we can do something really, really special there. And so the board has allocated those monies, and part of the conversation and moving forward is to articulate exactly how, you know, that process is going to work and where they're going to allocate to spend those monies to. But they are going to spend some of that money to address the needs of kids. And then, you know, aside from that, this whole long-range plan is doing more with less. The long-range plan does more to address the needs of students at a lower cost to the taxpayer. And so the committee will be there. The long-range planning committee will be there to make a recommendation to the board, and we'll just have to see where it goes from there. And listen, you said about the B word earlier. I get it. We need to all be friends about this.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that as over the next decade in this district, that our district, if you want to be the district of choice, that it's everybody's responsibility. If you hear my voice, wherever you're at, we need to make sure that we are living being a district of choice. A district of choice is a team, it's a family that can agree and can agree to disagree. But nobody has to be disagreeable about things. And I think that's important because, you know, the question is, are we doing good things for kids? If the answer is yes, then we need to support the overall function of what we're trying to do. If we're doing things like Frank Sinatra said, my way, then we're probably cheating kids because we're probably not doing enough. No one person idea should drive anything in what we're trying to do. Our kids deserve the collaborative thought, democratic processes in order to ensure that we're meeting their needs. And so I get it. There's people that's going to disagree, I hope they're not disagreeable. I hope that the vast majority of people can look and say, these kids have a need for an opportunity in some shape, form, or fashion, and we're addressing that need and support that. And, listen, there's hardly anything that goes on. Look, I've raised 3 girls, okay, that are adult children now. I've lived with my wife and happily married for 28 years this month. And so the thing that I've learned about that and that they've taught me is that there's very few things that I get my way. And so I have to compromise a whole lot at home, and I do so at school, because even as superintendent, I'm pulling people together and listening to people and trying to mold consensus always to better our kids, to better our community, to better the things that we do. And so there's nothing that you're going to agree in totality on. That's
not human nature.
It's impossible. And so I think social media has conditioned us that's where we are. And that is fool's gold right there. But also know this. There's people that if I could buy, as my grandpa used to say, if I could buy the goose that laid the golden egg, that lays golden eggs for 2 bits, there'd be somebody mad about it. And that's okay. You can disagree and we can still be friends. But if I have an opportunity to buy a goose that lays a golden egg for 2 bits, I'm going to spend the money.
Yeah.
And not be really apologetic about it. And so I realize that there's people that's going to disagree, or people that whatever. I mean, I know there's people that thinks that public schools shouldn't even exist, and that's their right to have that thought. But we do, and we're going to try to do the best that we can for kids. We're going to respect everybody, and just ask this, that people deal in the truth. And if you don't know what the truth are or the facts are, then let's make sure, and part of my job in moving forward is to make sure that we're always conveying the facts. Whatever the facts are, I think at the end of the day, when people have the facts, then the majority of people have the best intentions.
Again, the regular August meeting, Tuesday, August 12th, 6 p.m. start in the boardroom at the District Service and Training Center. Dr. Hawkins, appreciate your time on this episode of Take Two.
Well, I enjoy it. I know it won't be the last. I look forward to just trying to, bring information to our community. I think that's crucial. And we want to reach out there and we want to do those things. And as I always say at the end, it ain't over. We'll be back. We'll be in touch. God bless, and go Dogs.
He's Dr. Brent Hawkins, Superintendent of Schools. I'm Director of Communications, Curtis Quillen. Thanks for joining us on Take Two with Hawk. We'll see you next time. Good night, and go Dogs.